Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is the show all about farmers markets and how to increase your market business success. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a farmer or food producer selling at farmers markets, this is the podcast for you. On today's episode of Tent Talk, we're talking about the current challenges that many markets are facing in the face of public health concerns. Hey everyone, I'm one of your hosts, Brijet Myers, and I'm a longtime farmers market manager and have done it all from pulling permits to social media marketing and the educational coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Catt White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active Farmers Market Manager, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of the Farmers Market Pros community.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back.
Welcome back to Tent Talk.
So we know pretty much everyone in the farmers market industry and everyone in the country is stressed out, busy, a little on edge, busy, scrambling to figure things out, busy, and preoccupied. Are we busy?
We're busy anyway.
Are we busy? I thought I would be less busy, but that's not
true for a minute, but that's not what seems to be happening.
Nope. And we had an episode on sponsorship planned out for this week, but that didn't seem appropriate in the current climate. So let's talk about you know what.
You know what? We're saying public health concerns because I don't want to give that whole thing any respect by using its name. But know, C19.
C19.
Hey, 19. We can dance together. We can't talk at all. Right? There's no dancing because that's too close to public content.
Steely Dan. They don't want their song associated with this, first of all.
Do you think we're going to get sued?
Hopefully they're too busy to do that.
I'm hoping
Too busy to sue us.
Too busy washing their hands.
That's right. Hopefully. That's true too. And as we understand, we're not making light of this at all. In the least, of course, people have died. We don't want any more people to die or to be sick. Businesses of all kinds are very much suffering, which is what we're talking about on this podcast today in our small niche of farmers markets. But all sorts of businesses, all sorts of people are really having a hard time. So if we make any jokes during this podcast, please understand that like many people, we find dark humor our way to cope with our anxiety.
I mean, you got to laugh a little bit to not cry, right?
That's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, it is really serious.
Yep.
I mean, it's awful on so many levels. And no matter how we're suffering with the markets and all of that, we're not suffering the way people are who have lost family members, who are all of our friends. We have friends in Italy and they're seriously locked down.
Yeah.
So it's a horrible thing. But yes, we do tend to make little jokes about even the worst things just because it's how we cope. And I'm guessing that you do too. In fact, we'd be interested in hearing how you cope.
Yeah, one of those kind of mechanisms. And honestly, we want to do even more research before we do a comprehensive podcast on this virus and what's happening at farmers markets throughout our listening area. But we did want to take a few minutes today to fill you in on what we're hearing from our followers and from some of the groups that we work with in various parts of the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, it's been interesting to hear how similar some of the reactions are, especially in terms of city and state actions, and how different some of them are. And I think in general, we're seeing one kind of set of trends in large cities and one slightly different set of trends in smaller cities, which of course makes sense because a lot of the guidelines are about how many people you can have in a space. And so big urban markets have a different set of challenges than maybe a small market that has a reasonably small amount of tents and not so many people on site.
Exactly. I do want to also note that we're recording this on Saturday, March 14th. So whenever you may be listening to this, there could be new things happening. Just kind of thought of that. So
yeah, kind of like we got some guidance from the governor's office in California. And Thursday morning, we put out a lot of big announcements saying, don't worry about it. We're open. We'll be here for you. We'll have fresh food. That was about 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 or 11. A couple of small cities decided to close their markets. We said, don't worry about it. We're not there. We're in San Diego. We'll be open. We'll be here for you. Somebody else said, I've heard you're closing. We called them scofflaws. And we said, let's not be negative. And by 10 o'clock that night, we were having to put out new announcements saying the city of San Diego has closed us.
Yeah, the city of San Diego did tell us that our permits would not be valid for our farmers market. So they wouldn't be allowing us to close our streets and they wouldn't be towing any vehicles out of the event space. So really that meant our markets weren't happening.
Well, and then what we tried to figure out, and it wasn't easy, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about here, is that right now it seems to be really difficult to necessarily get a cohesive response from your various agencies that you deal with. So we had a question. We operate under those permits from the city that allow us to close streets and tow cars and all the things we need to do to open up space for the markets. We do have a section of our market that's on private property. And so our question was, well, if we can't have the whole market, could we have that one block area and just operate under our county health department and county ag department permits? And it took us a very long time to wind through the system and determine that in the health department's opinion, and it's taken us even longer to get anything in writing. So this is, as we say, it's Saturday afternoon. Could be all different by tomorrow morning. The basic answer seemed to be that our county permits were intertwined with our city permits, and if the city permits were canceled, that was part of what qualified us for the county permits, and so the county permits by themselves wouldn't work. But it took a very long time to unravel that because it almost... And in the city and county and every piece of government's defense, I mean, think about it. We're trying to figure this out for farmers markets, and they're trying to figure it out for every piece of what's happening under a really big umbrella. So I think they're just frantically trying to make the best decision they can and answer as many questions as possible. I think the right hands and the left hands, much less the feet and the elbows, are not talking to one another necessarily because they're all just working as hard and as fast as they can. We had the same feeling in our office yesterday.
Yeah.
What'd you say? It felt like the West Wing war room, right?
It really did. You know, the phone's ringing off the hook. We're getting a new email from a different agency every hour. We're all texting and emailing with other market managers in San Diego County just because everyone was kind of trying to figure out what the word was. And then some market managers were kind of calling it for themselves, which is their call. But it was confusing some vendors and farmers and the shoppers, the customers in general. So then they're calling us and asking what is really going on. Are you guys closed through April? Are we doing this? Are you guys closed just for the rain? Like just so many different kind of questions. And it was really just, people were just, I think, worried about where they're going to get their weekly groceries.
Absolutely.
Which is completely understandable. And the farmers were worried about what they're going to do with all these crops they have that they've grown and at that point had harvested.
Right.
I mean, it was such short notice.
It was Thursday night when we found out that enormous markets for the weekend were not going to be open.
Not just ours, but every large market, which there are quite a few in San Diego on the weekends, all the markets were not going to be open.
Right.
So think about, I mean, I just felt so bad. I really was like just upset about the whole situation, but just really sad for all the farmers and all the food makers, all these small businesses.
People that have baked.
Oh, yeah. Or just this is how they feed their family. This is how they afford to pay their rent.
And the reality is in America, you know, a lot of people that are working in really small enterprises are like a lot of Americans with normal hourly jobs. There's a lot of statistics on how many people don't have enough savings to get through an emergency in America. And if it's a healthcare emergency, and our healthcare system is not a big safety net here, people are scared.
They're just scared. And, you know, and it's just, we're all kind of riding in the same boat here, just the entire population, right? But it's, you know, speaking about farmers markets specifically, it's really all those small businesses and everyone who's just counting on that. They're counting on that income weekend to weekend. Right. So if markets are completely canceled for the whole weekend, that is a big rift.
Right. So I know that in Washington State, I got information because I speak at conferences in different places, and as Farmers Market Pros, we're members of a lot of state farmers market associations. I had gotten a notice that the governor, and I want to say that was from this morning, it might have been from late yesterday, that the governor had specifically said that farmers markets were allowed to open in the state of Washington. And Washington's under a lot of pressure because there were a lot of cases identified in Seattle. It was one of the first places that just kind of bloomed in America in terms of identified, diagnosed cases of C19. So I understand, again, every public health official is trying to make the right decision. Every market manager is trying to make the right decision. But markets were open there, and the governor of Washington, Governor Inslee, who's an awesome guy personally, I think, had made a statement that farmers markets were grocery stores. They weren't special events. They were going to stay open. They were necessary to public health. This morning, mid-morning on Saturday, the city of Seattle did pretty much what the city of San Diego did and revoked all farmers market permits. So the big Sunday markets tomorrow morning, less than 24 hours notice, aren't going to be open. You know, all those bakers have baked, all those people have prepared food, all the farmers have pulled stuff out of the ground. And once it's out of the ground, all that money that they invested in water and labor and seeds and all the things that you do to get those crops to where they're ready to be sold now, and it's too late to sell them in a week or two. It's just really devastating.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's been bad. But we are hearing different things from different parts of the country. So we had kind of asked in our online Facebook group for folks to raise their hands if they were open. This was an interesting one from Kentucky. Our schools are closed through Easter. Our public libraries are closing. Grocery store shelves are bare, but the market is open. You need healthy food? We got healthy food, which I thought was really encouraging and what we need everywhere.
That's our point.
Exactly.
Right?
A lot of Texas markets are open. Columbia, Missouri's open. So this is interesting. In California, the Napa Farmers Market is open. The San Francisco markets are open. 2 hours down the road from us, even in kind of crappy traffic, the LA markets are open, but San Diego markets are not. Because between state and county and city, there's so many different agencies that are getting to make these calls. And it gets really confusing, and it's not predictable or equitable. There's no way to tell what direction a particular community is going to go. So that's kind of frustrating. Fresh farm markets in D.C. are open. New York City's green markets are open.
Oh, I could not believe that. Yesterday they were open,
surprising.
so we were watching that. Yeah, it was very surprising.
They get big crowds, but it's encouraging, and those people are getting food because in a lot of these areas, I mean, where we are, for that matter, near downtown San Diego, there's all kinds of things you can do down there, but you can't buy groceries. There's no grocery stores there. So we had seniors showing up at the info. We managed an info booth this morning, even though our market was closed, to talk to people about what was going on and explain to them. It is actually sort of funny that we had so many people walk up and say, "Oh, are you closed because it was rainy this morning?"
I know. I think the rain confused people, but it was nice to explain that we would be open no matter what. But our phone was ringing off the hook all morning. We had an info booth there at 7:30 this morning all the way until 2. So our market's open from 8 to 2. And I really found that to be a very helpful way to stay in touch and communicate with the community that comes out and shops.
Right.
It was also really depressing to see older people show up there with their shopping bags, some of them with their EBT cards that come to the market for their regular fresh fruits and vegetables. I
mean, we saw a lot of tears.
They were saying, we don't feel safe going into grocery stores right now. Right. They're really scared to go into a grocery store.
Into an enclosed space that's really crowded.
Because they're older and they feel vulnerable, and they felt that shopping at an open-air grocery store, a farmer's market, for their essential fruits and vegetables, and in some cases using their EBT and SNAP, that they felt that was a safe place for them to shop. And it was just really sad to have to explain to them that the market wasn't open today, and that really we don't know what's going on, and we're fighting so hard to get it back open to at least accommodate farmers and grocery vendors with essential groceries. But just we couldn't help them today. And we couldn't even say, there's a grocery store right here for you to try to get into or find a way to help you get in there, because there's no grocery store close by.
Those resources aren't down there. Yeah. And some of these folks are limited income, our EBT folks, and they don't have easy transportation. They really count on those neighborhood farmers markets for their food, for their day-to-day groceries.
Yeah.
So, it was really upsetting, really, really frustrating, obviously. Albuquerque markets say that they're still planning to open in April. So we know that a lot of markets around the country actually aren't open yet because of their seasons coming up. But we have people that are posting that they are planning to open. I just get a post from Boise, Idaho that said that they are delaying their opening at the request of their Downtown Business Association in Boise. They're concerned. They don't know where to go. And then we had a comment from somebody that was open that said, we've gotten some negative comments about being open despite the thumbs up from local leaders. Many are differentiating between grocery stores, still open, and our market. No one's criticizing Costco, but somehow we're not being prudent by remaining open.
And we got a few of those comments as well. Just, I think, posting about, when we were posting saying we were open, a couple people were saying, well, if festivals are shutting down, you should shut down too. If conferences are shutting down, you should shut down too. And just kind of backing up and trying to explain to them that in this situation and in general, I don't want to be compared to a festival. We aren't Coachella, as sad as that is to be shut down as well, because really I understand as someone who helps run a conference. Conferences are also vital income streams for many people.
So many people,
all those people, they count on those music festivals and it seems kind of frivolous to people who might go to them. It's fun, but those are people's livelihoods,
right?
And those are people's jobs. People who do AV or people who do security. That's their job.
And those food people.
Exactly.
Isn't there a market vendor in Texas who made what was it? 25,000 cookies for attendees of South by Southwest, which was an event it's a big event. It's arts, it's theater, it's all those things. Understanding probably wasn't an essential gathering, and it's a big, big gathering with people from all over. So I understand why the public health folks thought it was prudent to cancel it, but they canceled it the day before. And so this poor baker vendor has 25,000 cookies
that they've paid for the ingredients for, paid for the labor, and spent their time doing, and now it's too bad.
Too bad.
Yeah.
So they're trying to sell a lot of cookies, but
yeah. So it's a tricky balance between like we understand that in order to get this situation under control, we need to limit contact with other humans. Right? It's a virus, but we have to also balance that with this is people's livelihood, and we can't just all stop working unless someone's going to say you don't have to pay your mortgage, you don't have to pay your phone bill, you don't have to pay for internet, all the things. Because they're shutting schools down. So kids are home. So how are people supposed to go to work? Just so many different factors are involved here. And then also, you can't shut every single thing. You can't shut grocery stores down because you still have to eat. So
yeah. And if you're going to be sick, you have to eat better.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we have sort of we've been compiling a lot of lists of things that we know and that we communicate day to day to people. But right now we're sort of putting them together because we're communicating with public agencies too to affect how they're interpreting different laws about large gatherings and such. And so there's some clear, important things about farmers markets. The food available at farmers markets is more densely nutritious than large industrialized sources. This is highly studied. It's highly documented. And it's widely believed that immune responses are best served by the intake of fresh fruits, vegetables, fungi, harvested and eaten at the peak of freshness. And that's not what you're going to get in a big box store, which, by the way, is still open, those big box stores. So that's really, really critical. There's some other things. A shortened supply chain means that food passes through fewer hands than it does in retail outlets. So it doesn't get handled by somebody in the warehouse and somebody loading it onto the truck and somebody unloading it from the truck and somebody putting it on the shelf and the cashier. There's so many people that handle any individual piece of food that's sold in that kind of big retail area versus our farmer picked it, our farmer put it in the box, our farmer handed it to you at the market, you took it home. So how many less opportunities are there to pass germs in that situation? It just makes sense when you're trying to avoid a contagious disease.
And when you think about going to the grocery store, especially produce or things that are unwrapped, when you're at the grocery store, how many times do you pick something up and then put it back?
Right. So how many people in the store have touched it?
Not even to pick it up to buy it, which is also you're touching something that a lot of people have touched, but you're picking it up and putting it back, and then the person behind you, you're just looking at things and setting it down.
You pick it up, you look at the label, you see what's in it. Nope, don't want that one. I want that one instead. How many hundreds of people just did that before you put that can in your cart? And how about that cart? How many people touch the handle of that cart?
Or the conveyor belt at the grocery store, and you can only wipe down things so well, which they're doing an okay job of, as far as I can see. But really at the market, we can control. At the market, sure, on a regular day, you might be picking up jars and looking at them or sampling and things like that, but that can be immediately controlled.
Right.
Because there is a person standing at every food product.
Exactly.
Where at a grocery store, there's not a person standing at a table handing you the food product. The public is just touching it themselves, it's a self-serve environment. That's just how it operates. So
yeah, it's so much safer. The markets are so much safer. I will say that because we keep refining the modifications that we're doing to respond to this situation. Like even when we were open last week, we had added a hand wash station at every single booth, including non-food. We had added hand wash stations to every farm tent. So each 10 feet, you got to have a hand wash station. If you're sampling, you weren't allowed to put out samples where anybody had the opportunity to touch the sample or even the tongs. The only person who could touch tongs is the person behind the table that could take those tongs and drop a sample into your hand. We even eliminated toothpicks because we realized that handing somebody a toothpick, our vendors were making contact finger to finger with the people that they were handing it to. So we went to tongs and dropping. Well, I know some markets have eliminated sampling altogether, so which is helpful too. But we can do those things again because, as you say, there's an individual standing with each product.
Yeah,
that's not something that you can affect in a grocery store. Shopping in the open air is healthier. So at farmers markets, you've got fresh air ventilation, you've got direct sunlight. In grocery stores, you're in confined spaces using recycled air systems. The airflow and the natural UV spectrum light are literally, medically, this is science, folks, less hospitable to viruses. So it's just a healthier way to shop. And then, the basic, which is where we started here, which is that purchasing food is a non-optional activity. Unless you've got a garden in your backyard and chickens and what have you, you're going to have to buy food somewhere. Most of us do in America.
And unless your neighbors do as well, you should care about this.
Yeah, exactly.
So even if you have access to food,
that's true.
You should also be caring about this because most people don't.
Most people don't. So closing farmers markets, that means we're directing all of our customers towards grocery stores that are already overburdened. And so now they're even more crowded. You're having more tight personal contact in those grocery stores, more people coming to each individual store. So we're doing, just the opposite of the overall recommendations for controlling this in terms of number of people, amount of contact, distance, social distancing. Not letting people shop at farmers markets seems to us to be, just in very practical terms, not the best approach to this virus.
Exactly. And really long term, food that's traveling from outside your city or your state or the country, at some point, those kind of travel restrictions
that's true.
may already be in place or may soon really be evident that they're in place. So if you're buying strawberries at the grocery store that were imported from Chile, if there's travel bans that restrict, most or all of those import items, what are we going to do? Where is the produce going to come from? It's going to come from local farms. But if we keep this ban on farmers markets, those farms are going to go out of business in the meantime. And then what are we going to do?
Rely on imported food for everything? And when we're talking about you can't even travel for business or pleasure or family concerns because international travel means a wider variety of germs joining places, what is more productive in terms of fighting that than relying on your local food system?
Exactly. Yeah. And, we were speaking amongst ourselves with the staff and some customers today at the market that really, I think that these guidelines and restrictions and the way our markets were asked or required not to operate this weekend, I think it really is people in the government and people in those agencies that can make those calls. They just don't understand the system of farmers markets. True. When we think of the percentage of people who do regularly shop at farmers markets,
what is it for? Maybe in an area that's jamming on farmers markets, it's like still 6% of the population that visits farmers markets.
It really
frequently.
is. So we just have to be real about that. They just aren't seeing us as a grocery store, even though we clearly, everyone in the farmers market industry, we know that. We have that information.
Regular shoppers know that.
Regular shoppers, all of our people who rely on this, we're aware of that. So that's the reason why we have to kind of fight and kind of try to make that clear to people, to other shoppers who may need another place to shop once we're back open, and also to the powers that be that need to recognize that opening farmers markets, it would be a public health service.
Exactly.
Yep.
Don't you kind of wish we'd listened to Farmers Market Coalition now and made all of our public officials come take tours of the market?
Don't you
Just
think?
so they know that what it looks like. We do. We do have some people. Senator Harris actually used to come to our market whenever she was in San Diego. Mayor Faulkner, has shopped the Little Lily Market from time to time. So there are some public officials that understand we're not a festival.
Yes, but we don't know if they regularly buy their groceries at a farmer's market. True. I think it really takes a type of person who counts on farmers markets for their food stability to really understand this from the get-go. And everyone else, we just need to be explaining it to them. And then when they walk in a grocery store and they might see some bare shelves, that might become a little more kind of important and urgent to them. So
right. It's just so tough. So those are all the science reasons and logical reasons and data reasons we see markets should stay open.
Yeah.
And then there's the reasons like shoppers that are literally crying at our booth saying, how am I going to feed my kids? The shelves are empty, showing me pictures of shelves at Trader Joe's that don't have anything on them and saying, if the markets are closed, how do I feed my kids?
Yeah.
Farmers. I had that farmer the other night that said, do you not understand farmers already commit suicide in the highest numbers of many industries?
Yeah.
I mean, that one got me crying when
Yeah.
I was talking to a county supervisor the other day. I repeated that line because I had just heard it from the farmer, and I couldn't keep it in. Which is also another note for those of us who are in the business. Farmers market managers, unlike grocery store managers, don't place wholesale orders from a list somewhere. We have a lot of personal contact with our shoppers and with our food makers and with our farmers. So work hard out there, folks, to be kind to yourself and give yourself a break and let yourself take a minute and just sink into it and feel the emotion. And then, as we do, we buck up and get back to it. But you're under a lot of stress. A couple of us today, one of our staff members and I were just talking about our backs hurting or our necks hurting. And it's because we're internalizing all this stress about not knowing what's going to happen next. And because we do this job, because we take seriously the work of getting fresh food to people and supporting small farmers and supporting small businesses. And farmers market managers are nothing if they're not can-do kind of people. And we're very frustrated when we can't do. People are not letting us do.
Feeling like we can't do really anything in professional or at home if we can't do anything about, our kids or our family or health. I think health workers and people in the food supply chain, whatever that may be, we're just feeling really the brunt of this.
Right.
And a responsibility, a personal responsibility, a moral responsibility to help people that we've always helped, that we always just typically help.
Sure.
We always help people get food, right? So now I'm just feeling it as such a much more pressure on that.
Yeah.
Someone's pushing that pressure down. So
So all those stress release things, remember to do that for yourself too.
For sure. Because you know what? The entire population is in this. We are in this together. People are saying that they're overreacting, saying that they're underreacting, saying that it's fine, it's no big deal, it's going to pass, saying that they're building a bunker for themselves and filling it up. I mean, there's all sorts of reactions happening to this. And I really feel that people are reacting based on their own live stories and that just whatever has happened to us or however we were raised or however we feel about things in general, that's coming out in like a crisis situation. So just understand everyone's going to react different. It's just human nature.
Right.
So, but however you might be reacting, we're here to tell you, like we're all here together. We do have a community of people that are all feeling the same type of pressure that you are as farmers market people. So at least that part of it. And we can all kind of breathe.
I'll share it. Breathe together.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Keep going.
I did see an interesting thing yesterday on social media. Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that. Did you see it?
Yes.
She did a little kind of a video thing on Instagram, and she was saying that she had found herself talking in a panicked, negative way and telling somebody, oh, I have to do this right now because it's chaos here. It's terrible. It's scary. She said, and then she stopped for a second, looked around and realized, actually, it wasn't. That most people were responding to this in kind of a calm, resigned, organized manner, and that in terms of given everything that's going on, people were mostly coping pretty well. That they were not being mean to each other about it. That they weren't just going into the bunker. That they were continuing to try to live life as much as they could and to make the right choices overall. And that it's not chaos really. So God bless you, media, because I've been part of you. But don't get too worried that we're out of control.
Yeah.
There are some things we can't control.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things we can. There's things we can still make choices about, and we can still work together, and we can still keep this rolling.
Yep. And I will say that today, being in Little Italy on a Saturday, there were definitely more than 250 people gathered in that area.
Even without the market.
Even without the market, sipping coffee, walking their dog, hugging their neighbor, going to breakfast at the brunch place we all thought would be dead. And we're like, oh, it's a good time we can get in now because we never can. Nope. Line down the stairs. And people generally just having a good time. I mean, I'm sure everyone's kind of internalizing their fears and, feeling panicked perhaps, but really, people seem to be out and just kind of having a good time and feeling calm. And there wasn't I didn't get the vibe that things were scary once I got outside and took a look around.
Right.
It's easy to feel scared when you're staring at Facebook and seeing everybody's memes and panic posts or watching the news. It's better to kind of get outside, take a walk. Even if you don't see anybody, just go outside. Like the birds are chirping.
The birds are still chirping.
Like the sun might be shining, depends where you are. But
we're very lucky where we are. We could go out and watch the waves roll in. Because that always gives you some perspective.
Definitely.
That just keeps happening.
Yeah. So, time moves on, and just taking it day by day, I think, is a good reminder for everyone, especially people in the farmers market industry, just day by day.
Day by day.
Yeah.
There are some things, and I think we're not going to talk about them today because we're still working out some details, and I'd like to be able to give you better advice. But I know that a lot of people in the farmers market management area are working out ways to do kind of databases of which farmers can deliver to people, or they're assembling pickup boxes and that kind of thing. So we're going to dig into that next week and talk a little bit more about some practical advice in that regard because unless somebody said yesterday, it'll be fine. You know what? In a week, this will all be over.
What's going on in a week? The cure?
Right? I'm kind of guessing that's not true. If it is, then we'll talk about sponsorship next week. but otherwise, we'll probably talk next week about alternative ways that you can get your farmers and food makers products into the hands of customers, keep customers in the habit of shopping from us. I think one of the trickiest things today was that we couldn't give anybody an answer to the number one question, which is, how long is this going to last? We don't know.
We don't know. Nobody knows.
So we don't want to have them in their heads go, okay, so what I need to do now is just get used to shopping every week at a grocery store.
Exactly.
Because the market will never be back. You don't want them to make that shift in their heads. So we're going to be working proactively on other ways that we can get our folks' foods into our shoppers' hands. And we'll give you some kind of down-to-earth nuts and bolts tips on that next week. So we will talk about that next week.
I have been really, proud and excited to see how many of our farmers and food makers have kind of mobilized to
they're working together.
They're working together. They're grouping together. They're sharing each other's info. They're sending us stuff. Please share that, I do online orders or, things that they're setting up, which I know we'll talk about more in detail just because it's still happening right now. But it was really amazing to see that kind of stuff going on, mostly through social media, people sending us emails, and just how they were still getting up and going.
That's right.
Making it kind of happen and making it work. So
yeah. It's an amazing bunch, the folks that are in farmers markets.
It's encouraging. So. And also, I need my food that I get at the farmers market, so I'm excited to see that they're doing that, because no matter what happens, I still need to feed my family, and I'm not feeding them grocery store produce.
I know. Bridget was desperate today when she suddenly realized that she couldn't go pick up a box from a farmer because it was a pre-order CSA thing.
Very depressed.
Very depressed. So we'll be visiting a farm soon.
Yes. Well, that's all we've got. But we're going to keep talking about this in our Facebook groups and in emails and our newsletter. So please do join us in the Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. If you're not a part of that already, please jump in. If you're listening to this, you're in the farmers market industry, join in. We'd like you to be a part of the conversation. And if anything, you can just see the conversation between all of us, because I'm hoping it'll help you and we can just help each other. Email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. Send us information about what's going on. Let's share all this info. It's been nice. The San Diego Farmers Market managers, we don't really talk to each other that much just because we don't.
Because
we're all different.
We're all very different.
We're all very different people, and we just all kind of run our own markets, and it's not super necessary for us to talk all the time. But we did have a farmers market manager that did email all of us and say, hey, folks, let's all be talking.
Right.
We don't have to agree to do the same exact thing, but we all need to be sharing the same information and new information, and let's just be talking.
Yeah.
And then the market managers who...
A lot of them jumped in.
Some didn't,
but a lot of them, we definitely have a better dialogue going now than we did a few days ago, and it's because, something about crises can pull people together.
Exactly, right? So, and if there's market managers or other farmers or vendors that you feel are not doing what you would like them to do, or they're, saying that farmers markets are closed for months or whatever, maybe they're just kind of panicking, and this is how they're dealing with their panic and their stress. So I'm trying to just kind of give them a little grace, and, sharing information is always just the best.
Share it gently.
Yeah.
So remember, while you're out there doing the good work, wash your hands Don't touch your face. Eat healthy. Be well. We're family. We'll be right here.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to this edition of Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us how you're enjoying Tent Talk. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. And if you want more farmers market tips, tricks, and information, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at farmersmarketpros.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. This podcast is produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Thanks to Adam Samaha and Justine Marzoni Mead for being recording and editing wizards, and David Mead for your perfect original Tent Talk music. Thanks for listening.